Under the umbrella of 3 different portfolio companies I've had, we've launched 6 different offers that went from 0 to $1 million a month in under a year. And in fact, the last one we launched went from 0 to $1 million a month in 60 days. Now, a big part of how those all scaled so quickly is the marketing team that we built. And so the marketing team would centralize and essentially do the marketing for all of those different offers in those companies as one centralized service. So in this presentation, I break down exactly how we run that multi-8-figure marketing team that's really at this point generated well over 100 million in revenue. Enjoy. First, I'm going to show you our departmental org chart. We're going to talk about meeting rhythms and agenda. So we're going to talk about our Monday through Friday meetings, why we do Monday through Friday, what's covered within those meetings, and then the rhythms inside of those meetings. We'll cover all of that and the differences between all of those. We're going to cover what's something I call the paid advertising optimization system. And so this is really what I was talking about, is not getting those 2 to 3 month cycles and really getting it as a system that can self-regulate and self-optimized without you. So that's very, very big. We're also going to talk about the daily advertising audits. That's something with and inside of the system. We'll talk about how we optimize email marketing. And then at the very end, I'm going to cover probably 5 or 6 tests we got from using this system and also just macro trends I'm seeing of stuff that's working for us right now. So even if you totally zoned out until the end, I guarantee 2 or 3 of these tests would work really well for you guys and make you a lot of money. So just as a warning, for most people, this is gonna, if you try to take, I'm giving you a buffet, okay? If you try to take this and implement everything, unless you're already above 10 million, it's probably a little bit of overkill. But my goal is to show you everything we're doing right now. I can only tell you what's true in my own experience and what we're doing. I can show you everything I'm doing. My goal is for you to find 2 or 3 things you can implement, right? Otherwise, you're going to go to the buffet, you're going to eat everything, get really full, throw up. So 2 to 3 things. That's your intention. All right, so what's our org chart look like? Basically, you have me at the top. Then you have a CMO. I'm kind of the CMO right now. We're really looking to find a CMO and really develop a CMO in training. Under the CMO, we have multiple departments. Now, this is what I do to run paid ads. If I was trying to do what Hormozi's doing and really scale my content and become famous, then you would see a lot more on the content operations side. So really under that, we have a paid media director. The paid media director is really the decision maker on all of the ads. And then the media buyer is the technical executor, right? So if you guys know, if you launch ads, it's a huge pain in the ass. You got to get in there, you're duplicating all these campaigns, you're uploading a video, then there's a bug, so then you got to wait 30 minutes and come back in 30 minutes later. And really dealing with the interfaces could be a huge pain in the ass. You're hitting up support to get things reapproved. So the paid media director is more of the strategist and really the person high level making decisions, and then the media buyer is actually executing it. Then we have the tech lead in the tech department. That's who's doing project management tech, integrations, making sure the tracking is set up. So they're working with the paid media director and the media buyers pretty closely. Okay? Now, one key thing to keep in mind here, in the beginning, I know for me, my paid media director, media buyer, and tech lead were all the same person. And I was technically just like the CMO, right? So these roles, at first they could just be you. Then you might make one critical hire of somebody really good who can cover a lot of these roles. And then eventually, especially as you spend more and more and more, you're going to have to split things out because it's too much for one person. So on the right side, we have content operations manager. So we post daily on all the social platforms. Are we super great at it? We're okay. But we're certainly not there's people in this room who have way bigger organic following than me. So I'm not the expert on that. That's not what I'm going to teach you. But we do have somebody who oversees all of the daily distribution of all of those things. Okay? And so they oversee the video editing team. And the video editing team is basically video editors and then also what's called timestampers. So what they do, the timestampers go through a presentation like this, because I don't really do any sit in front and do shorts. They go through all those presentations, and then they timestamp out for the video editors the clips they think are interesting. So I can give you more information on the scorecard and stuff like that if you guys want to later. Martinez might have that. And then we have the video editors, which take the clips and then make them into the reels, the shorts, all of that stuff. On top of that, the video editors work with the paid media director and the media buyers to produce the ads. And we'll talk about what that looks like later. Then we have social media ops, which is basically just the person posting on every single platform, putting everything together, putting the description in there and just making sure everything's good and that we're posting daily. And then we have talent, okay? So I should have a YouTube video coming out one of these days. I keep forgetting to make it. I paid Patrick Bet David $150 grand. and spent a day with him, and he consulted us on our business. And so I went out to Fort Lauderdale, hung out with Patrick, and so I was touring their office. I mean, the first breakthrough I had was before he was even there. I was touring his office, and I'm like, okay, so it's like a multi-floor office. And so I'm like, okay, like, so, you know, what's this floor? And he's like, this is just marketing. And it was like 30 people. I was like, well, okay, well, no wonder the dude's like basically famous. He's got 30 people. He doesn't even, I mean, barely runs ads. Doesn't know anything about ads. 30 people, just organic content, right? So obviously that's overkill for a lot of people, but it just goes to show, you know, you just got to have the team. It's hard not to win when you got that much labor behind you. The second thing is I was talking to this guy, and I forget his name, but he's one of the co-hosts. He's like the younger guy. I was talking to him, and he was like, we had a really, really good conversation. Afterwards, Joel, who was giving me the tour, I was like, what's that guy's role? Because like he just makes content for you, right? And he's like, he's just talent. I was like, so his role is called talent? And they're like, yeah, he's just talent. And he's like, we also have a female that really aligns with our brand, mission, vision, and values, et cetera, and she's also talent. And so we have two people, and we're looking to expand that, multiple people of talent. They build their own brand, they build their own channels, they build their, you know, a co-host on the podcast, et cetera. And I was like, oh, that's super interesting. So what we have now is I've kind of shifted around my marketing department. Martinez before was kind of like the content operations manager. I put somebody else in there. He's offloading his stuff to that. Now Martinez, if you see, like a lot of our ads are him, not me anymore. So he's the talent. Does that make sense? And what he also does is he manages the talent. So we have multiple actors and actresses who do the ads for me. And so what this means is I don't have to do the ads. Who likes making ads? You like making ads. So some people like making the ads, but here's the thing. When you start spending $700,000 a month, you got to make like 30 freaking ads. And then it's like, you know how like you talk, everybody's like, oh, the content hamster wheel. Like, let's run ads so we're not on the content hamster wheel. But then like once you get up to a high enough spend, ironically, you're right back on the content hamster wheel, right? So what do you have to do to get out of that? I'll show you actually later in the presentation. But what really should drive it home for you is if you look at the biggest companies in our industry, Dave Ramsey, $300 million a year, Cardone, $250-ish million a year, I'd say. At least is that what they say. You know, I won't get into that. I have some we won't get into it. But if you look at them, Dave Ramsey, he's got like two younger guys as faces. He's got a female face. He's got him and maybe his wife. He's got like 5 faces. Now he's like he's kind of about to retire. So he's really trying to get people to take that brand over for him. If you look at Cardone, he's got Cardone, Jared, Ryan Secco. He's got Brandon Dawson, Natalie Dawson, Elena Cardone. And then honestly, like he even kind of uses his kids. He does. But what he talks about is when he starts doing that, Elena can hit a part of the market that he can't hit, right? Jared can hit the younger people. Grant's like good for the old grizzled like car sales, like the people who are in the service-based industries. Brandon can appeal a little bit more to tech. He exited for 77X, right? So this is something that I want to build out because I'm just kind of over making the ads. I don't want to do it. And honestly, what's great is you'll see later, doing this whole talent thing, our ads are actually working better. So a few things that I said to the left, some of these positions, like don't be like, oh my God, like I got to build out all of this. Again, like it could be one person in the beginning, then it could be like 2 people. And you really kind of, in the beginning of your in your career, you want to hire generalists in most positions, and then you expand to really having specialists. And then, your people like Mitchell and Brian, like they're kind of generalists because they're good at a lot of different things. I'm kind of a generalist too. I'm good at a lot of different things, but you sort of get more specialized in your org chart as you go. In the beginning, it's like the way we were able to do probably $700,000 a month with probably 6 or 7 employees is like I preached like every single person had to be a generalist. Then I realized later, okay, that doesn't really work. You can't have you got to start actually doing the cool corporate thing. All right, so rhythms and agenda. So here's what our weekly structure looks like. So nobody likes to do daily meetings, but you got to do daily meetings. The same whole spiel I give about how the sales team, the big 3, you got to do the daily meetings. It's like if it's the one thing you do the daily meetings, run the daily meetings correctly. Well, go figure, it's basically the same for every single other department. We've had departments, like Mitchell took over a department, And one of the only things he did was he took the meeting from 30 minutes to 60 minutes daily. And that was probably one of the biggest things that turned around the department. Now you're like, well, how could that happen? It's only 30 more minutes. It's because of what they did with inside the meeting. And they had more time to get in sync. They had more time to cover accounts receivables. They had more time to train on upsell calls, whatever, right? So with marketing before, what we used to do is we used to do Monday, Wednesday, because I was like, I'm the CEO, I'm creating a bunch of content. I don't want to be on all these meetings. And, what happened was we had an offsite and I was listening to the team and they were like giving me all these suggestions and every suggestion was really good. And I was like, okay, well, the common solution to every single one of these is just to have more meetings. So I don't advise you, we might have a meeting in 20 minutes, we get off the meeting. You don't have to just sit there for an hour. You cover what's covered, then you get off the meeting. But having these daily syncs really helped. So the way they work, Monday, we do the sales and marketing sync. So is anybody here in the marketing department of your company, like the CMO or something like that? Okay. How often do you guys think the sales team just isn't closing the leads? And the sales team's telling you it's the quality? It's quality. You're like, no, it's not. And then you point to all this data. You're like, data. They're like, dude, it's quality. Salespeople, they don't speak data, or at least they don't want to, right? But on the sales team side, you're like, dude, the marketing team, the lead, there is some times where the leads are really bad. I remember one time I was like, I think the leads are fine. I pulled out 20 calls and I listened to all 20. And I was like, holy shit, you can't close a single one of these people. It was really bad. It's only happened one time, but there was one time, it was in early 2022. I was like, wow, we need to change everything. This is really bad. But what I was saying is basically the sales and marketing departments, they're often not in sync, right? We know that. So how do you fix that? Well, you have a meeting. It's called sales and marketing sync, and you get them in sync. We'll talk about what that agenda looks like in a second. Tuesday, we just do marketing sync. So this is something we used not to do. Again, we used to do Monday, Wednesday, sales and marketing sync. What would happen is the whole meeting becomes predicated on just really getting in sync with sales. And all these things about us as a marketing team getting better, we're getting left behind. So we had to do a team without marketing there. Go figure. Now, we do that on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Friday, obviously today, was canceled. We're here. But Tuesday, Thursday, we can pretty much hit every week. And we have different rhythms for these meetings. So I'll show you the agendas, but what a rhythm is an expectation of an initiative that's going to get done before that meeting. So for instance, I put in parentheses copy board. That's the Tuesday rhythm. What that means is if you have any ideas for creatives or you've come up with any new controls, whether you're a copywriter or a talent, we review that and critique that during the copyboarding process. But the expectation of that is every Tuesday. So everybody knows Tuesday, you make new ads, you make new ideas, whatever. We review that as a team. That's something we're implementing now. Thursday, we have two different rhythms. And this is stuff, again, some of this stuff we've had for a while that I'm going to show you. Some of this stuff we've recently just implemented, and we're really excited about it. So Tuesday, there's the conversion rate optimization rhythm. So each funnel you have, you want to run one split test a week. And so on Thursday, we cover the results from the last split test. Okay, that gives us data. We make a new hypothesis of how it could be better, and then we run that split test. And these are split tests within the funnel, right? So it's going to be landing page and on. Then we do what's called variation testing. So I'll cover this later, but this is where we don't test new controls, but we try to create new variations within a control so we can create 50, 100 variations out of one control winning ad. So I had a consult with a guy who, he was really, really great in direct response. He consulted and worked with VShred, and VShred's I think doing 200, 300 million a year in fitness, all direct response. And he was saying that they can get controls to run for 2.5 years because they'll make 600 variations out of one control. And they'll test hundreds and hundreds of ads a week. So a lot of these processes I got actually from my consult with that company. So moving on, we're going to cover the sales and marketing sync agenda, and then we're going to cover the marketing sync agenda. Okay, and then we're going to kind of break it out, and I'm going to cover a few of these things as we go. It's going to get a little intense, but you'll just follow along. So the first thing we do on the sales and marketing agenda is we go through wins. That's the same as the sales team. I'm not going to cover that. The next thing we do is budgets. So budgets is kind of the equivalent of the sales team projections. So in the sales team projections, it's you go around, You state, okay, hey, team, we projected 200 this month. We're at 100. It's right in the middle of the month. Okay, we're on pace. Some things we're doing well are this, this, and this. Some things we're going to think about are this, this, and this. Then you go around, you're like, John, where are you at in projections? And John states his projections. You go through the whole thing. We do the same thing with marketing, except for salespeople. Instead of salespeople, it's channels. Okay, so we look at Facebook, then we look at YouTube, then we look at the setters, then we look at cold email, then we look at the division as a whole, and we see, okay, are we on pace? Do we need to talk about anything? Okay, if we're on pace, is there anything that's working really well? Can we double down on that? If we're not on pace, why are we not on pace? Okay, so I'll show you what the tracker for budgets looks like, and I'm going to give you a template as well. Then we go through the paid advertising testing pipeline. So we review all the tests that are currently running that are relevant to the sales team, and we just talk about those because we got to get the sales team's input. Then we check on email marketing. So basically, we send 30 to 40 emails a month for RCA and SDA, right? So 30, let's say, for SDA, 30 for RCA. Now, what we do is there's no real kind of formula of how we do it. We look at the calendars, and based on how far the calendars are stacked out, we send either a direct or indirect or a value, right? So those are the three types of emails, or three types of content really in general: direct, indirect, value. So if the calendars are really light, we send a direct, right? A direct is like straight pitch, but it's the most effective, most fatiguing to the list. Indirect is essentially kind of in the middle. Value is like if you send a YouTube video, then there's just a little PS, right? It doesn't fatigue the list at all. In fact, it actually helps the list, but you're not going to get as many calls. Indirect is where you might start with a story and it's valuable, or it's like a blog post and it's valuable, and then it ties in to a pitch later. Does that make sense? So if the calendar's a little bit light, we'll probably send a direct and maybe 2 indirects. If they're really full and we're running into a weekend, we might send a value and then also maybe not send to keep one in the chamber so we can double send, let's say, on Monday. So we go through all of this as a team, and it's nice to have the sales team there to see kind of what they're experiencing, so we can really make our email marketing as effective as possible. Then what we do after that is we go into initiatives and projects, okay? So budgets, paid advertising pipeline, then really we go through Asana, and it's just the initiatives and projects we have. I'll show you what that looks like. So don't worry, you're not going to be able to see this next thing. It's super small. I have a template in the training, so don't try to read this or anything. But I need to show you like a zoomed out view. So if you could see each of those like different colored little like columns, that's a channel. Now our sheet's a complete mess because we run on so many different channels. A lot of y'all are going to have like 1 or 2 channels, right? But we're running on like everything, and then we have like the setters, then we have like ad roll and GDN, we have like search. So like we have everything all split out, and it's kind of a little pain in the ass. You guys probably aren't going to have that, okay? So I'll zoom in and show you a little bit of what this looks like later, but we go through like, this one's Facebook, YouTube, ad roll, we go through SMS, we go through email, we go through the setters, we go through cold email, we go through the cold calling team, then that's paid advertising totals as a whole, then division totals as a whole. So you could see like we have everything broken out. We could figure out what's working, what's not working very easily. Then on the far left, below that blue column, is each of our closers. And what we do is like, let's say you spend $100,000, okay? It doesn't work out to where each closer gets $33,000 worth of budget allocation, because the budget allocation, it depends on how much availability they have open, right? So for instance, you might have 2 closers, they both close 30, but one only had 5 slots open a day, the other had 8 slots open a day and actually took more calls. So what we can see through this sheet, there's a formula. Again, I gave you guys a template, so don't worry. There's a formula to where I can see the net CPA per closer. So I could see 2 closers, and they're both at 30 units, but one of them's cost per acquisition is $800, the other one is $1,400. Does that make sense? So now I know who the better closer is. We do the same thing for setters too. It's just not there yet. This was from February 2022. The one now, there's even more channels, and like I put it here first, and I was like, they're just gonna like be like you'll take one look at it and be like, forget that. So all of this, every day we have a VA who populates this, and they get it from the paid ads tracker, sales tracker, and the finance tracker. All of those are in the 8-figure operations training in school already. They're all linked in there. You guys can go do it. I also already, before this presentation, created a video that goes deeper into how to use this sheet, because it's going to be pretty tough to figure it out from this. So we go through this. Now, zoomed in, here's what this looks like. So basically, this is like Facebook, okay? So you can see we have all of our KPIs on the left. then to the right of that, there's projection. So we set projections on the channel of all the KPIs beginning of month. We actually do that on the 20th of the month prior. So on May 20th, we set June. Okay? The reason we do that is you want to figure out what you're projecting in June, in May, because it takes 10 days to ramp up spend, generally. Or you want to cut down spend and coast. Does that make sense? So June 20th, we set all the projections. Then what we do is we just put the actuals in there. You just have a VA do this, $4 an hour. Pretty easy. Then what happens is on that third column, it shows us what we're pacing. So we can see, hey, we projected, let's say 500 leads, we're pacing 400 leads, all right? Then we got to look at, okay, where's calls at? If calls are high, leads are low, that's probably fine. If calls are low, leads are low, we just know it's a lead problem. So then in the upper left corner, that's how we get that formula, days in a month, current days of yesterday. You always report on yesterday's data. So it's going to be, let's say, 133 apps divided by current days of yesterday times 28. That's what you get your pace. So that formula is there. Again, I did a longer training of this. It's in school, so don't be discouraged. Cool. So this is the testing pipeline. So with this after we cover the budget sheet, we go through this, we talk about it. This thing is not working. Then we go through this. So this is where we test all of our creatives. So on the far left, we have ideas. We don't cover that in the meeting. Then we have assets ready to test. That's when the video editing team is done with the creative, they put it in assets ready to test. Then we have currently testing. So every meeting, we look at what's currently testing and evaluate it. Then we move it to active controls or active controls funnel, whether it's a funnels or an ads test. Or if it failed, we put it to non-active controls or non-active funnel. That's basically all that is. It's pretty simple. Then this is just a zoomed up view of this. Each of these has a filter in Asana. So we can see the type of test, creative, media channel, where it's at, what offer it's at. Okay, this is a mastermind boardroom funnel. What's the urgency? Status of asset completed. So this is just pretty simple. You have to organize this because what happens is over years, you will start to, your creative team is going to be like, I need more creatives. Or your agency maybe, I need more creatives. And you're like, dude, I've created 100 creatives. You're running 3 of them. And what happens is things just fall through the cracks. So sometimes you do something to non-active, you kind of scroll through it, you're like, man, we could probably recycle this. We didn't use it. We've used it last 2 years ago. It was one of our best controls. Does that make sense? So this just keeps everything very organized. All right? So then we do the email marketing check. This is just a simple sheet like this. We just have the dates, the days, and then we just do direct, case study, indirect, or value, or whatever. Then we put the Google Doc email in there, and then the subject line. Very, very simple. You can have that template as well. So then we just, after all of that's done, we go through the initiatives, okay? So this is just very simple. You just use Asana. You just start from the top. You go to the bottom. You check with the team on all the initiatives. So within each of these, we sort them in these different categories. So there's initiatives where we check every meeting, needs addressed ASAP, one-off task, queued test, random idea, important resource. So what happens here is if you don't do this, you're sorting either by due date or sorting by alphabetical, which is random. So you kind of just cover stuff in all over different places. So if you sort by these tags, then let's say somebody who's the media buyer needs to put in something that's addressed immediately. Then what they can do is put needs addressed ASAP. It goes to the top of the queue. So hopefully that makes sense. It's really, really good for a cadence of just covering the most important stuff on your meeting to the least important stuff. Now, when we make it a task and assign it to somebody, this is for anybody on your team, okay? If you make a task and assign it to somebody, a lot of times, not every time, we use this framework called OTAY. So OTAY is when you're assigning them a task, an SOP or whatever, you talk about the outcome. So what's actually going to, what does it look like when it's done? What does success look like? What's the outcome? Then you talk about tracking, which is how are we going to measure success? Then accountability, who's successful for it? And then finally, why? Why is it important? So the reason we do why it's important is because our brains are two things. They're forgetting machines because we take in so many stimuli, we got to forget. They're also meaning-making machines. And the only things that we remember are the things that we deem meaningful or that we know the meaning behind. So it's two things. Number one, when you put meaning behind the task, people are more likely to remember it and really get it. The second thing is they're more likely to understand how this task fits inside the entire whole organization of your business. A lot of the issues with employees is they just have tunnel vision. So they're just thinking like tunnel vision, task, and then they don't really kind of innovate and create themselves simply just because like they're not thinking of the business as a whole, whereas you're thinking of the business as a whole. Okay, so that's when the sales team's there. We cover all that stuff. When the sales team's not there, it's similar, but we do a few things different. We cover budgets. That's the same exact thing. Then we do what's called audits. All right, so I'm going to show you this spreadsheet. You're probably going to freak out. It's not that bad. But this is like one of the best things you can do if you run ads. We get full attribution of really like every metric possible. So the big thing with audits is that if you're running on 3 channels, or you're running, let's say we're running on like 3 different Facebook advertising accounts, we're running on YouTube, and we're running on, let's say, TikTok. Well, if you want to if everything is pretty good within KPI and you want to trim the bottom 10% of your campaigns every 7 days, if that's your cadence, it's really tough to flip through all of the accounts, to flip through all of the ad platforms and try to set up your Hyros so that you can see what's your bottom 10%. Maybe Hyros has a setting for that. Regardless, it's just it's a lot of work. The other thing is you could have 2 campaigns doing $300 cost per call. Now, if you guys do the application grading system, you might, be canceling a lot of applications, especially if you're in dating or in fitness. You cancel most of the applications, right? Well, let's say you have two campaigns, $300 cost per call, $300 cost per call. Well, let's say this campaign, realistically, you're canceling 80% of the applications. This one, you're canceling 20% of the applications. So 80% are qualified. Which one's better? Obviously this one, right? This one's better. Well, with Hyros, how do you know that? With Stape.io, how do you know that? With anything I've ever seen, how do you know that? With this, we can tell the difference of that. Okay? So that's why it's so important. I can actually see which apps are qualified and feed that back into our attribution. The other thing about this audit system that we created is that, let's say you have a campaign, the VSL kind of sucks, so people don't book immediately, but your autoresponder's sick and it's booking a lot of calls. Then let's say you hire a setter, and the setter starts scooping all those people who would have booked through email, but now are booking through the setter. You're still getting some through email, so you're actually getting more calls total, but you're not getting as many through email. Well, with ads, it's going to look like that campaign fell out of KPI because you can't see the calls that the setter booked, right? So with this system, by campaign basis, I can see which campaigns the setters are having the most success with. Does that make sense? Can't do that through Hyros, can't do this. I don't know. I'm sure there's maybe something that's been able to do that. I would think I would know if there was. So we had to create this. Okay? So I'm going to show you, but it is going to be you're going to watch it, and you're going to be that's a big spreadsheet. And it's not that scary, I promise. Then we're going to go over the paid advertising testing pipeline. That's the same. Then we go over content QC. So after we go through that, we look at every single channel as a team: TikTok, YouTube Shorts, YouTube videos, Instagram. We look at it as a team. We look at the last 5 posts, and we just kind of quality control it, look at the descriptions, make sure the timestamper did its job, the video editor did its job, the person who wrote the copy doesn't suck. So we do all that, and then we give any feedback, any ideas. Then we go over initiatives and projects. That's the same. And then we'll do the copyboarding or whatever rhythm we're doing that day. So the audits. Okay. Here comes Big Daddy. All right. So it's going to be worse because you're probably not going to be able to see shit. This is not it. I don't know what this is, Matt. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay. So here's the deal. What we do is we have a VA go through all of our ad accounts in the morning, all of our channels, all of our ad accounts, and then put them manually into a spreadsheet. So what's cool is now I don't really manage the ads day to day and make the decisions as much. But when I did, I was basically managing $700,000 a month in spend without ever having to log into an ads manager. And you guys know, logging into the ads manager, you don't know what you're in for. It could be it could just show you have 0 conversions across the board. It's just a bug. Sometimes it's you're trying to launch a campaign, it's just nothing shows up. You just have no campaigns. You're just did I lose my entire business? Like, what's going on? Like, I hate that thing. It's so buggy, right? And then, you're in there and it's just a black hole up in that thing. Like, next thing you know, you're like, oh, 2.5 hours of my day gone in the ads manager. So this prevents that. So basically, as you can see, we break it out. It's a little messy right now, but we broke it out by channel. So it's YouTube is here. Then we have, this is our, our setters perform where you don't pay campaigns. So this is on Facebook. Then we have our campaigns that are specific for the mastermind and boardroom. And then this is a different offer that we actually cut off. So I'm going to stay right here. And then you can see, you probably can't read shit, but I'm trying my best out here. Okay. Thanks, guys. That's encouraging. All right. So you see, we have the campaign names, we have the creatives, we have the audience, we have any notes, we have the total ROAS, we have the date launched, then we have total spend, we have the budget, the bid strategy, number of days live. So the reason we have number of days live is because, like, if something's out of KPI and it's 48 hours, you don't cut it, right? It's 2 days. But if it's 41 days, okay, like we know, right? So another thing the reason why you have days live is because what you can get is the Hyros sale attribution. So you could see which campaigns are getting what sales. Well, the problem is like B2B, our sales cycle is 7 to 12 days. So if I want to wait double the sales cycle, and if our CPA is 2,000, I got to spend like 8,000 and rate 20 days before I can really make a statistically significant decision on sale data for a certain campaign. So the days live help me see that, whereas like, if something's been running 111 days and it's not getting any sales, it's like, okay, it's bringing in leads, but there's something wrong with the leads. Hopefully you guys follow that. So we can see sales. We can see this is our sale data, 30-day CPA, 14-day CPA, 7-day CPA. So again, with Hyros, what do you have to do? You have to click the individual campaign, then you got to go in, and then you got to go to the right corner, and you got to tab 4 days, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days. And then you got to like use a napkin to try to remember what the, like, okay, like, is the 7-day to 4-day trending down? Is it trending up? Okay, what was the 14-day? In my experience, there's nothing that just gives it to you all in one view. Does that make sense? And so what we can see here is trends. And then so what we do is we do that for really all the metrics. So we do that for leads, and we do yesterday's leads, 2 days ago's leads, and calls, obviously. And then we do 4 days, and it goes 4 days, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days. So this gives us crystal clear idea of how our marketing is doing. Now, as you can see here, we can see, so 2 days ago the setters took shit. This is real data too. Okay, so you can see here, like 7 days ago sets. So we can see, like, this campaign here is having the setters having the most success with this campaign. Now, our B2B, our setter team's not as, like, B2C, we get 80% of the revenue from the setters. So this is our B2B sheet. Our B2C sheet, we really look at the setters. Because, like, the calls are kind of iffy. The best calls come from the setters, but before it's like, we didn't know, like, well, if the best calls are coming from the setters, what campaigns do we cut? Because we don't have any sort of data feedback of what the setters are having the most success with. We just kind of have to guess. And sometimes if you cut the campaign, like what we noticed, if there's a $5 campaign CPL and a $15 campaign CPL and a $30 campaign CPL, guess which one the setters do the best with? The $15, right? But if you just went by leads, you cut everything but $5, now your setters are drowning in trash leads. You just don't know. You don't know this stuff. So we had to just create it. So what you also can see here is we have the calls, and then what we have is MQLs. MQLs means it graded 3 or above. I'll answer questions later. Cool. MQLs, 3 or above. So again, like if you have the application grading system, you can't really see like okay, I'm getting a lot of applications, but I'm canceling 80% of them. I have 5 campaigns. Which of these campaigns are the majority of those trash applications? Which ones are the ones producing good ones? You can't see that with Hyros. You can't see that with anything. You can see it with this. And you don't have to log in the ads manager to do it. And then this combines it. So you can see total cost per qualified opportunity. We can combine on a campaign basis sets along with MQLs and get a cost basis on that. And then that's where we make our final decision. And we can see that trend over 7, 14, 30 days. I know this is like, some of you guys are like, oh man, spreadsheet. But it really is like, I can't tell you how much, I don't know how you would run ads without this. I mean, it's like, we've been doing it for a while and it was kind of just like a thing I did. But now that we have really perfected it, I would do a version of this and it won't be near as complicated as what we have to do. So what we do is we go through all of these, we know our KPIs, and we color code every single campaign. So this way, what we can do, the other thing I didn't show you, is there's formulas to where we can get the average of all of these metrics. And then we can get the average on every single account altogether wide. So if my goal is to cut my bottom 20% of campaigns today, I don't have to flip through all of them. They're just all on the sheet. And automatically, I can see the bottom 20% that are below the average. Does that make sense? So instead of like trying to freaking eyeball it in the ads manager for 2 hours, I know in 5 minutes. Does it make sense? So what we also do is we go through color code the campaigns. Green's good. Blue is good, but maybe it's probably trending down a little bit. Yellow means it's borderline. So usually what yellow means is it's below KPI, but it's probably top of the bell curve. Like let's say my KPI is $400 per call. Yellow would be like, well, the average cost per call right now is $600 and this one's at $600. So yeah, it's below, but since it's my average, I'm not going to cut that. I'm going to cut the bottom of the bell curve. And then orange is probably cut, orange is probably cut and usually give 1-2 more days, red's cut. So that's how that works. Hopefully I didn't overwhelm the shit out of you guys. I was a little worried. So I already kind of went over this, but again, you can see all the time ranges in one window. You can see all the trends. You can see every single channel, every single account. You can color code the campaigns. You can pull in MQLs. You can pull in sets. It makes a huge difference. Now, again, like, don't feel like, oh my God, like, you know, I'm not doing this. We're horrible. You know, if you could have a VA for $4 an hour do this, and it will look, yours will be way simpler than mine. You can just have them use a template, go through the training, they'll get it. And this is also a good way to really, like, if you have an agency, to see how your agency's doing as well. So you could still do an agency, and then eventually you can do this on your own if you want to build internal. Okay, so here's what we're doing with creative testing. All right, so basically, this is what has really dropped our cost per book call, or cost per qualified call, by like anywhere from 25 to 75%. So if you could see in the top left, we have fodder. Now what the hell's fodder? That just means stuff that gives the creative team ideas. So that's our best winning creatives, our best emails, that's looking at competitor, indirect, and direct ads, and a myriad of different other stuff. So we give the fodder to copywriters, okay? We just contract this out. Sometimes I might write a little bit. Sometimes, you know, Martinez might write something, or somebody on my team might write something, but somebody's got to write it. So we give the fodder to people who write ads. Then they write ads. Then the talent films the ads. So what we do is Martinez usually films it. Then the ones that work, he'll give to a bunch of actors and actresses. Then we'll get like 5 faces with one ad. Does that make sense? Then what we do is that creates new controls. And then what we do is we create variations off the controls. So like Martinez knows when he films an ad to do like a different 5-second hook at the beginning of every single ad. Okay? Also, we can do a different, you know, banner for every single ad. We can do a different headline for every single ad. So we create a lot of variations from the ad. Then we put those in the pipeline. Then what happens is when we do the audits and we cut stuff, that creates a budget gap. Okay? Or maybe we do the audits and we're like, hey, we're going to scale, we're raising projections. That creates a budget gap to where we need to spend an extra 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, whatever it is. So in that case, what we do is once we have the budget gaps, we fill that with non-tested creatives in most cases. Okay? Then we get the winners, and then the cycle repeats. Does this make sense? So it's kind of like a flywheel. So the big things here is what creates the budget openings, either cutting the bottom 10, 20%, or if we just need to scale, we can do that. One thing is, too, I tend to err on the side of scaling by just testing more stuff. And the reason for that is I generally find once you have stuff winning, don't touch it. Our rule of optimization is no touchy. When it's working, just don't touch it. And so the other thing is, too, is I like to have 5 to 7 really quality campaigns as a base. And then once I have that, then I can consider raising everything by 10% if I need to spend an extra $2,000 a day. Okay? But then that way, if one falls off, like what people get into the problem of is they have 1 or 2 campaigns, And then what happens is you like try to hike that, you got to like get that from $1,000 a day to $3,000 a day. And so you're hiking 20%. And then you're like, oh, it's still good. And then, oh, it's still good. And then you hike it another 20%, breaks. And you're like, okay, well, let's go back down. And then it's still broken. And then like you just broke it, you just fixed it till it's broke, right? So it's much, much better to have more anti-fragility, have more campaigns in the base, and then slowly and steadily hike those. Hopefully that makes sense. Cool. So in terms of scaling standouts, you can vertically increase the budget. More often what we do is we have a winning creative. We'll just duplicate it with a higher budget and not touch the winning one. We'll dupe it to a new audience, so proven creative to new audience, or proven audience to new creative. Then what we can do is I'll do a new placement, new age bracket, or new device. So again, if 24 to 35 is where all your spend's going, you can break it out and retest just 24 to 35. You can also break out and test the other age groups as well. So you can do the ones that are spending, not spending. You can do the same thing with device, placement, etc. Gender also. You can also do new formats. So like for instance, instead of doing an opt-in, you can do a lead form that leads to your VSL, see if that still works. It's a different format. It'll hit a different segment of the audience. But what we want to do is we want to really, if you think of your market as like a pie, get as many segments in the pie as you can. And then once you have an antifragile base, you scale that by 5 to 10%. Okay, so this is another thing that is pretty intense that we do. But we've just started doing this. So this is not new controls. But once we have a control, what we want to do is create 5 different first lines, 5 different first line video hooks, 5 different headlines on Facebook, 5 different banners that you can use on Facebook and TikTok, and then also different variations within the actual creative test. So like a different 30 seconds, a different body, a different outro, whatever. So if you do 5, 5, 5, 5, and 5, I mean, I don't know what the math is. You're going to have 600 possible combinations. Then what you do is you can either take the ones that look pretty good, run them as dynamic creative, or you create an ABO CTR campaign, all $5 or like $3 a day. You have like your control headline, and you just call it control, and then you just have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you have 30 headline tests, and then you run it on link clicks, and then you run it to about 400 to 600 impressions. Anything that's 200 to 300% increase in CTR, that's a winner. You either feed that back into a control or feed it into dynamic creative. Does that make sense? So as you can see, this is like super hyper optimizing. In terms of email marketing, so ongoing split test. So every autoresponder, you can split test every single time. You might as well. There's no reason to not do it unless you just don't have the bandwidth to do it, which is fine. I didn't do any of this until like just a couple months ago, probably. So you can split test every AR. Once a month, what we do is we review the top performing broadcasts and the lowest performing autoresponders. We feed the best the best broadcasts into the autoresponder sequence. Okay, so if we have a 8 set autoresponder, well, if 7 didn't do very good, we'll take, but we had a broadcast that was like insane, like went viral. Well, we're going to test that broadcast as autoresponder, right? Then we do the top performing subject lines, broadcast subject lines, split test those in the ARs. And then we also take the top performing broadcasts and create new concepts and formats. So this means like we might test, instead of sending a direct calendar link, we might send it to a VSL and then it's demo below, right? So there's different stuff you can do there. Another thing, and this is a very easy one to do, is take the broadcast, and what happens is in the AM, we'll send 25% of the list and we'll split it into thirds or fourths, and we'll test 4 different subject lines. And then in the PM, once we know which one won, we'll send the winning subject line out to 75% of the list. So this gives you an increase in opens every single time. Okay, so if you just glazed over for like 20 minutes, this is worth the entire presentation. So some stuff that worked really well for us, and then the next slide's even better. So using this system, we found a bunch of stuff that worked. One of the things that was like super dumb, honestly, on my part, is I kind of forgot for 3 years we had only run US only, not even Canada, just US. So what happened was I just duped our winning campaigns and ran them international, and we saw like in some cases, I'm not even kidding, 75% reduction in cost. Like we went from $800 cost per call to like $140, and we're closing them. So that's pretty insane. If you're not doing that, we do New Zealand, Australia, Canada, UK, United States. I think that's it. So same copy, different face, right? So this is another one. Again, take your winning creatives, and then you go to Fiverr, and you basically just hire an actor or an actress for like a couple $100 to just redo the creative. Now, you might have to go through some bad ones to get the good ones, but once you get some people who are halfway decent, here's what happens. I've literally, if they're halfway decent, we have not tested it yet to where it's worse than mine. Maybe you get the dud here and there, but generally, I don't know if I'm ugly, people don't like me, but, you know, these randos do better than me. So, worst case, I don't have to do any creatives anymore, which is sick. I like that. Best case is like we have one person who, like Martinez generally, like he'll do about as good as me or he'll do better than me. And people always comment on his ads saying like, this guy seems really nice. Yeah. This guy seems real trustworthy. People come on my ads are like, this guy's a scam. Yeah. So, anyways, we do, that's worst case. Best case, I have this one person who took my same ad, same words, like not even a deviation in a single word. And like my ad was doing 800 cost per call. We launched her ad, same audience, same everything, same words. Hers gets $200 cost per call. Yeah. So it's like, well, I'm out, you know, like I'm not doing this anymore. It just is like so dumb. Like I'll write the ad, but I'm not, you know, no need to put the makeup on anymore. So another thing that worked really well, this is kind of a little hit and miss, is you can take your winning ones that are going feeds and stories, run them to stories only. That's a good one. The other big trend, unfortunately, is like, I think YouTube ads is just horrible right now. I was talking to a couple guys 3 days ago. One was doing $3.5 million a month. The other one was doing $6.5 million a month. So we were having a little ads, you know, powwow nerd session. And I was like, have you guys noticed like YouTube ads just sucks right now? And they were like, oh yeah, dude, we stopped doing YouTube ads like a year ago. And I was like, oh, like, thanks for telling me. And the thing is what happened is once they got rid of keywords and placements, like they're trying to shift more to a pixel AI type thing like Facebook does, to where you have less options, but you know, it's more AI based. I think the main issue is their AI sucks, number one. Number two is there's huge spam issues. So what we would see is we'd launch something on YouTube. Back in the day, if we did custom search, custom affinity, we'd get 50% to 80% spam. If we did keywords, no spam. Well, they got rid of keywords. So this was a huge issue. And the issue was with our buyer funnel, we couldn't really tell, because it's hard to tell when opt-ins are spam. It's easy to tell when applications are spam. So when we started doing SDA on YouTube, we noticed like, dude, this is all spam. Then we ran a test and we figured out probably 1/3 of our opt-ins on YouTube were spam from the buyer funnel. So then I was like, okay, well, screw YouTube. We're going to go back on Facebook. And then we tested that, and you know, it's real early. This has been a recent thing, but we have a lot, like, you know, our best campaigns for YouTube for our webinar, we're doing 0.6 liquidation. We have some right now doing anywhere from like 1 to 1.5 liquidation, and we haven't tested much at all yet. I mean, we're just really getting into a place where we're shifting some budget. So I think Facebook's back in. Both the people I had talked to too a couple days ago, $3.5 million a month auto webinar. The other guy, auto webinar, $6.5 million a month. Like, these guys know ads really well. Both of them are like, yeah, 100% Facebook. So good fun fact for you. So here's another thing. Now, just to be candid, I didn't make this up. I heard this from Brian Mancata, and he heard it from Jeremy Haynes. So full credit goes to him. But this is like kind of one of the funniest innovations that we've had in the last 90 days. And it slaps, okay? So, you know the direct VSL, where you're like, the first 5 seconds is you state your offer, okay? So all I did is I took the exact scripting word for word, I put it on a PowerPoint, all right? I put it on a PowerPoint, and then I embedded the PowerPoint in the funnel, and then they can tab through it on their own speed. Same campaigns, again. Like, we were getting like $700, $800 cost per calls on B2B. Duplicate, just do this, $200 cost per calls. Yeah. And I don't have to film a video. So now, I don't have to film the ad, and I don't have to film the VSL. So I'm getting pretty close to retirement. All right. So hopefully you guys found that helpful.